Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Ves Sobot, sitting in for Jocelyn Bamford. Every week, we introduce a thought leader, tell their story, unpack the challenges of doing their craft, and explore ideas for job growth and prosperity. This week, we have someone who has spent most of her adult life dedicated to building a better Canada-U.S. border for travel and trade. She promotes the principles of efficiency, safety, and security, supported by continuous improvements in technology, processes, facilities, and innovation. Dr. Laura Dawson is Executive Director of the Future Borders Coalition, based in Washington, D.C., and she joins us today from Atlanta. She's a wonderful friend of Canada's. Thank you so much for joining us today, Laura.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Ves.
Most of us don't give any thought to the border, but it's a vital gateway, and it's absolutely necessary for prosperity and jobs. It's long, 8,800 kilometers roughly, 400,000 people, and $2 billion in trade cross every single day. And the vast majority of those crossings are problem-free. Tell our audience a little bit about your organization and how an efficient border is in the best interest of all of us.
Sure. Thanks so much. And it's great to be here with you. So the Future Borders Coalition is an organization of committed U.S. and Canadian business and government folks who want to advance the relationship in both supply chains and in people. So movement of cargo, movement of people. We all know that there's government commitments made every couple of years, and we say, hey, NAFTA, that's great. Hey, Security and Prosperity Partnership, that's great. But what happens in between these big government announcements? How do we manage the many, many challenges and opportunities that we have in making this border work and work better? And now in this time of real geopolitical upheaval, I think it is incredibly important for us all to invest in this most important economic relationship. That's the U.S. and Canada. And as you mentioned, that's what I've been doing with my career for most of my adult life. It's even more important now. We can think of the border supply chains moving across the border as being like a spine, right? When your back works fine, you're not worried about it. You're up, you're walking, life is good. But you get a problem with that skeletal structure when the ability to move things easily is not so easy. Things fall apart. And this relationship is so important and so based on time-sensitive movements that we just can't afford to have delays at the border or regulatory divergencies. We got to be as efficient as possible.
Boy, what a great analogy, the border being like a spine. I didn't realize that Canada is the U.S.'s greatest source of tourism. About $20 billion a year is what we contribute to the U.S. economy. Border restrictions due to COVID must have really put a dent in that. And I know you worked very hard to minimize those restrictions. Tell us a little bit about those tough times, what some of the problems were, and how we can mitigate those and so that we don't have to deal with them moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredibly difficult. And we've all done our personal stories. I'm a Canadian living in the United States, and I couldn't see my grandchildren in Ottawa for a year and a half, and I was counting every day. But on the larger scale, the tourism industry was the first and worst hit by COVID economically, to be sure. The U.S. and Canada are each other's largest source of tourism. And so when that travel suddenly stops, things become very difficult. And yes, there were government payments and supports, et cetera. But every tourism operator I know, every airport, everything was relying on their reserve funds, drawing down, just hoping they could last for one more day. So now that we are in recovery, we're seeing people traveling with a vengeance. This is, everybody's going to Paris, everybody's going to Rome, and that's wonderful. But what hasn't happened is a return of those day trips that are really the lifeblood of our border communities. The two Sault Ste. Marie's, the Buffalo, Niagara, Windsor, Detroit, Vancouver, Seattle. Those communities are fueled by mom and pop going across the river to get lunch, to
Hold that
participate.
thought, and we'll pick it
Yeah.
up right after the break.